Hello, I'm John Ryan.
And I'm JD Orr, and this is the G Unit G League Team Handball uh talk here. So
All right.
it's a
G
play
League.
on yeah. This is for our later discussion here. So
What I don't. Well, yeah, we'll get into that. We got a G League two-way lacrosse star playing for the Golden State Warriors. I don't know if he's played very much. You're one of those two-way players. Hey, he's probably making more than 98% of our handball heroes.
correct, correct. I think that's
Yeah.
a safe assumption.
Well, we've actually got some news, quick news happening, so that we need to share. So let me share the screen here.
Breaking news,
Let's see here,
live from the presses.
and let's go ahead and share. I don't know why that came up. Oh, well, first
Golden
off,
Knights at the Bruins. There
now
we go.
we were talking about sports betting. I know nothing about hockey, but when they give
Yeah,
me bonus bets, I gotta bet them. They
yep,
earn value, expected value higher than one. I'll figure it out.
yep. It's
Um,
tough. Hockey's tough, I'll admit.
Well, I've learned a lot about empty net goals at the end of the match.
Yep, yep.
Oh, those are the bettor's friend or enemy.
Absolutely. The hook is
Uh,
there for a reason.
but anyway, let's talk about Sophie Fassel moving from her current club, VFL Oldenburg, to Buxtenhude, I guess, SV. Um, looks like a good move from what I could tell. If you read the article, do the Google translation, uh, looks like it's um, three goalies is just too much for crowd
Yeah.
on a club team. But perhaps you can even speak to that a little bit.
Having been in that spot myself, especially even on the junior national team, I was the third goalie and spent some time playing right wing. So I don't think Sophie's would be doing that at her level, especially as talented as she is. Definitely been a mainstay on our women's national team for a long time.
Yeah, even if the goalkeepers are all equal, what are you going to do? You're going to have one,
It,
split it into like
right.
hockey hockey
You, you,
periods. It just
it's it's awkward. It's
yeah,
awkward. And then,
it's
you
awkward,
know,
and then sometimes you can almost make a case um, that you're better off with just one good goalkeeper.
yep, even if they're having a bad day. I mean, it's one of those things that's so hard to tell, which goalie's feeling it because like you could be doing warm-ups and they're just, you know, killing it in warm-ups. Then when the game comes, they drop the ball. And I think I haven't been following Barca a lot, but they have a unique problem with, you know, Perez de Vargas and Emil Nielsen, where they have two really good goalies, and I feel like de Vargas is kind of I don't want to say aging out, but I feel like Nielsen's been playing better, but they haven't been playing him the whole time, and they've been kind of splitting time here and there. And I don't know if it's come back to hurt them, but I mean,
Uh,
we
you
saw,
know, they're both so good, and I'm not an expert goalie evaluator, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
But I watched them today. That was a hell of a match. Magdeburg and Barcelona.
I'm gonna have to
Uh,
go back and watch that one because
oh,
I saw the tweets and stuff after the fact, and I was like, dang, man.
so I thought Nielsen did a little bit better. Yeah, but they went with De Vargas in the second half. Barca lost by one. I mean, it's yeah,
That's what I'm saying, man. Like it's you got to ride the hot hand, but then at the same time, it's like, man, I don't know. Will he be better? Do we need him to be better? Like what's it's
yeah,
and that's just two
uh,
goalies. You throw a third goalie into that, it's like,
it's
well, I don't even
impossible.
know. What am I
Yeah.
supposed to do with this guy?
And I
So
think that's what they had. They alluded to another goalkeeper who'd kind of maybe emerged, possibly. I don't know. But she's going back to, with this other team. It's basically they're right next to each other in the table right now. I don't know what their historic background are. It sounds like they got two goalkeepers. Sounds like they're not looking to uh
keep a third.
yeah, to put in a third. And I would like to think that there was a discussion about, I mean, you don't guarantee playing time, but you get an idea of what the coach's philosophy, and you can look at who your competition is and saying like, hey, they're right at my level.
Yep.
Um, I mean, you get the interesting situation where um, you're frenemies,
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of when
you're
you're on the
trying
same
to
team.
the team's trying to win, but you're also trying to be the star, So
And I heard stories. This is back in the day, when when you're trying to make an Olympic team,
yeah.
and I heard, I don't know if this was confirmed or not, and I don't know
Oh boy.
if it was uh, true or not. But I heard a story once where like a wing was trying to make the team. The goalkeeper already knew he was going to make the team, and they were buddies, and they were like going, "Okay, big
Oh,
scrimmage, first first shot, I'm going to give you, go
go.
inside low
Yeah.
post or something like that." I don't know if that's true. That's just what I heard. Um, I don't know, but
It's an interesting situation you bring up there about, something as critical as a team like that. So, uh, I wouldn't put it past not happening in sport, especially when in a sport like this where you as a goalie have a direct correlation to the success of the people around you. So interesting, interesting, interesting.
well, let's take a look at a fabulous goalie shot earlier
Oh
today,
yes, it's my
just for
boy.
fun. Just for fun. I was just blown away by this play.
And one of the things for people back home is that this is probably coming, what,
Out of here.
10 feet away at close to 60, 70 miles an hour. Like,
Well, I kind of backtracked a little bit, So he he kind of was kind of going off to the side a
he's
little bit,
fading
but
away a
seriously,
little. Yeah, yeah,
I anytime I missed a shot like that, I was pissed at myself. I was like, I should
yeah,
make that shot, you know, that should be the expectation. But to have it, ah, holy crap.
yep, yep.
I
I'd
don't know if
say
they have a sports psychiatrist, but I think Golarud is going to need one.
I think as I was always told, especially in Germany, that if the goalie catches your shot, you owe him a beer. I think that's a pitcher for a situation
Well,
like that.
that's a that's like a growler, a case,
Yeah.
free beer for a year. Hey, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
tell you what,
jeez.
you've seen like those new beer places where they have like the wall and you
Yep,
get the little
yep.
card.
Oh
Awesome.
yeah,
Those places are freaking awesome. I love those places. I think you should have to be like, here's your card. I'm gonna
yep,
leave it. It's gonna be constantly recharged for the rest of the year. Big Bad Wolf, you win.
yep. Puffed and blew all these balls away. But
Uh,
yeah, I mean, I think I will admit, stick 'em. It does help in this instance a little bit for that to be, but Wolf's not trying to catch that. It's just one of those things. His hands there, and I've shaken his hand. I mean, that dude's hands, him and Landine, they are not normal humans. I mean, you're talking like if here's my hand, we're talking an extra couple inches. And so that it definitely helps. But I mean, it's still an amazing feat nonetheless.
yeah, I had to like, I sometimes work for the EHF as an editor, and I wasn't even working today, but I got online just to say, hey, you need to get
That
this shot in
blow
case
this
you miss
up.
it.
Yeah.
Somebody had already seen it and already posted that. So and I said, hey, I'm gonna try and get Sports Center. I don't watch Sports Center anymore. Who knows? Maybe
I don't know
they
that
could get.
yeah, that's the one thing. The last couple times that I tried to watch Sports Center, it used to be at the end of the hour-long show, you had, the top 10. And I feel like now I'll be at my dentist or something like that. It's the only time I ever watch it. And then there's never any top play. So I never know. And then I
Yeah,
try to go through their Instagram or Twitter, and It's not like they just post their top
About the
plays.
only
So
time I would watch it is after like Monday Night Football, and then I would watch like the bad beats because I enjoy those. And I a
yeah.
little side story, I almost got a handball bad beat on Sportsnet. I was exchanging messages with Stanford Steve,
Oh,
but it did not make the cut. And then I had the EHF. One of the interns was talking with the EHF to get the video. Didn't make the
oh,
cutting room floor.
dang.
Maybe some other time, but they were
It was at least a
willing to.
conversation.
It
So
was a conversation. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about some other social media, and then
yes.
also the USA women at a training camp in Hungary. So I'll
Yep.
pull up some of their social media, play through that.
They're actually where we are going to be going here in what, 10 days? A little less, 9 days, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
It's coming up quick here. So
yeah. For those of you who don't know, the Ohio State is going on a spring break trip, and I'm going to tag along as a designated old guy.
yes.
So, is Billy football still going?
I texted him this morning to pay me for a hotel. And he said he's still trying to, he had told me he already bought his flight. Um, but he's still trying to get it approved by Dave. So, um, I'm gonna try to text Hank tomorrow and see if we can get a different avenue to get him to get be approved. So, that would be nice. So, as far as I know, it's still happening. Oh, interview
Looks like
time. Look
yeah,
at
it looks
that.
like they did an interview with Hungarian TV. I don't know. Is there a link to it? Does not see location.
Okay,
Uh,
cool.
I don't know what the context was and what was said, but um, no gripes for me on the social media efforts of the
The
women's
women's
team.
team, they always are leaps and bounds ahead of the men's team. Um, I think they definitely see the value in it, and they on all their trips are always you get a full access inside scoop as to how they're handling things.
I think there should be some articles on the website. I think maybe results, even if they're scrimmages. Tell us who's at the camp, yada yada yada. But
Minimum details, just bare minimum. Even as a person that's been a part of those things, like I'd like to be able to go back and say, hey, here's me 20 years ago that I was, a part of this. But if you
yeah,
don't have pictures and you have no proof that it happened.
all I got is some grainy black and white photos. Otherwise, nobody would believe me.
Hmm.
Um, all right, so that's a quick summary of the handball news. How are we going to transition?
Um, Trying to get some other newsworthy items here that we're gonna get into our topic about athletes the transfer athletes, and there's the biggest story in I would say transfer athlete news is uh, Mr. Pat Spencer here. Um, he was basically the equivalent of the Heisman Trophy winner in lacrosse at Tewaaraton, um, at Loyola, um, and then he, uh, decided he wanted to get back into his love of basketball. Played a year at Northwestern. Did surprisingly well there after not playing for 4 years of any organized basketball. And now he's found his way to the Golden State Warriors. So
Yeah, so I pulled up some of his Loyola highlights, I guess. Where is this Loyola? Is it
this is
Maryland?
Maryland. Yep,
Okay, well, that makes sense. For those of you not, well, I by no means a lacrosse expert, but I know that Maryland is big in lacrosse with Johns
definitely a
Hopkins
hotbed. Yep,
and Maryland, Long Island,
your
uh,
East Coast. Yep,
East Coast. I did a little research on lacrosse, and I've done more since getting to know you and
yeah.
making fun of your fanboy podcast you guys used to do.
Yep.
Uh, I've studied up on lacrosse. I was interested to know that there are five D1 programs outside of the Eastern time zone.
What, Utah's now, I think D1, Denver,
Air
Air
Force.
Force, two more.
There's like a couple in the St. Louis
Okay.
area.
Okay.
Uh, so, but yeah, and
It's
we've had our little arguments about what sports transfer and um, I'm skeptical of lacrosse,
okay.
as
That's
you
fair.
know.
That's fair. Yeah.
That's fair. But I will say this: I've watched it a lot more. I'll even, I still got my ESPN Plus subscription. I
Hmm.
watch the National Lacrosse League. I actually think that indoor lacrosse is probably
Indoor.
a better parallel to
It's a lot more
handball.
congested, so there's a lot, as you have to play tighter, you got to play through a lot more contact. Here it's more soccer where you can really run away from people, run around people versus indoor. You're taking one, two steps, you're getting hit by somebody, you got to make a pass, move to the next guy, a lot of drawn dish, pick and roll action. But my big reason for lacrosse being the transfer is just the fact that you're shooting onto a goal. There's no other sports where you have a goalie, and you are throwing something. Hockey, it's slapping it from the ground. Soccer, it's your feet. So this is the only one where you really use your arm to place a shot. So that's where I think it's a big
That's fair,
trans.
and I think that's legit. I think they've got a crease, it's a much smaller goal, but you're thinking along the same logic in terms of like where are the openings and what's a better shot to take and how do I get myself free for that shot.
Yep.
Um, so I mean I see the logic and you're trying to get by people. Um, that said, that's that
Defensive
skill of
schemes are pretty
that
similar.
skill of
So
that skill of moving a stick has no little to no effective transfer, in my opinion.
it's the same throwing. I mean, it's the same throwing motion. So um, it's
Eh,
very. That's all. I'll leave. We can continue. We can keep fighting
I
it.
think
But
I think throwing
defense.
a baseball or a dodgeball is more of an apt analogy. I think.
That's fair. But you don't have defense in either of those sports. You have defenses. You're going both ways. So it's the same defensive layout. So that's where, as a totality of a game, I think it's obviously water polo is up there, but that's such a smaller sample size. And
Swimming is a little bit different than running.
yes, yes. So. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think defensive schemes, I've tried to help enact some of our, handball defensive ideas to lacrosse and see how they translate. And, some of the stuff's work, but a lot of the drills that we do at lacrosse are the same drills we do at handball. So, um, it's the same kind of concept where you have your guy, you're trying to beat your guy, but you also have help defense on either side of you in some
What is
instances
it?
and
What
the
is
shooting
exactly is
angles.
the offense to defense transition? There's a little bit of a swap out of players, kind of like beach handball, isn't there?
It's probably more so like a keel, where you have guys that just play defense and guys that just play offense. So you have, your three guys on that are permanently on defense. You have three guys that are permanently on offense. Those are attack and close D. Then you have each team has three midfielders. So when you go to play defense, you usually sub out guys that are better at defense, and so you have three guys that are just out there to play defense. But then when your team transitions to offense, they might come out, but they can also stay on if they want to. So,
Yeah.
um, not quite the same, I would say, as beach handball per se, but similar. But I think of it
Yeah.
more as like when
There's
Keel subs
never
out.
ever there's never ever an exact
Yes,
uh,
correct.
replica and analogy. Um, and we've talked this, and I think people are naturally biased toward
Yeah,
their
of course.
favorite sport. I was a huge basketball fan. I still am a huge basketball fan. I've played quite a few different sports, and no two team sports have ever been as similar to me as basketball and handball. They're both played
Yep.
on, you know, indoor courts. The running is about the same. The pace of play is about the same.
Yep.
Offense to defense transition is very similar. If you see a team in an airport and you go like, oh, that's a basketball team,
Looks
it
like
could
a
also
handball
be a
team
handball
too.
team. And
Yep.
that happened to me several times when we were flying as the U.S. national handball team. Everybody assumed it was a basketball team
Like,
because we
we
looked
guys
like
play.
basketball players. Quite a few of us were basketball players. You have the same similar athletes, and I've always said that there's like a 70% overlap. You give me you give me 10 basketball players, I bet you seven of them could be good handball players, and vice versa. You give me
Yep.
10 handball players, seven of them could be good basketball players. There's variances in the sport, and they're not the same. I mean, people like to think they're the same, but
I
but
might
they're
even
not.
go a step further though, because when I think about basketball, like shooting is a very important aspect. And I've seen Abu try to shoot a basketball, and I don't know that we. It's
Abu,
one of those Abu, Abu Bakar Fofana. So, um,
Abu. I thought it's Abu. It's just saying
Ab-
Abu.
Abu, Abu, yeah.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, so like I think just shooting a basketball is definitely harder than shooting a handball, I would say.
That is
Um,
the biggest distinction, and I think a lot of times that has happened. I've kind of like joked about like if I had grown up in East Germany under the old system where they like would identify athletes for different sports at like age
mhm.
12, and they would say you will now play this sport
Yeah,
forever. They would have like looked at me and they would say like, oh, be a decent basketball player, but he is more suited for handball. He is more rough and tumble, and we will make him a handball player. You know, and I was never a very good shooter, and that was a weakness that I had. I mean, in close, I had a good turnaround jumper, but God, free throw line,
yep.
55%. I don't. It didn't matter
Oh,
how many free throws I
jeez.
shot. I wasn't
Shaq.
getting any better. Um, but that to me is the big distinction. If somebody can't shoot, handball, there's finesse to that, but it's not quite as
You got a little more
all
wiggle room.
encompassing as being able to shoot.
Yeah. That's what I
Um,
tell the kids whenever I go to recruit. I see a kid, he's shooting hoops and brick, brick, brick. I'm like, see that over there? That's a 10 foot wide by 6 foot, one of those little circles. So I think you might have a little better success shooting on that. So
and 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 it's the same thing, if you look at the college basketball players that have become NFL tight ends, there's like a whole community of them.
yeah,
Those are the same type of dudes that would have been good handball players if they weren't looking for multi-million-dollar
true.
contracts just for you know making the roster or whatever. But it's the same type of body composite, if you will. It's not perfect,
Yep.
but I look at lacrosse and I see good athletes. Pat Spencer's kind of like he's messing up my theory,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But I don't see basketball players and handball players as much. I see not always. I see guys that tend to be a little bit shorter. Not always, but I think the average cross player is probably a little bit shorter than the average
True.
basketball player or handball player for that matter. Um, uh, but I've kind of come around a little bit saying, yeah, there's some similarities. And I do see, transfer potential there.
Yeah, and that's where I think, it depends. Everything's obviously so, but you can when you get to the highest levels, each position can have different, I would say, body types and play styles. So that's where like, I would say in general, a lacrosse player is going to be beefier, more muscular than a basketball player on the average, especially in today's day and age. But at the same time, you don't necessarily need that in handball. Like if you have a tall, lanky backcourt player, he doesn't have to be super, strong because he might not play defense at all or something like that. So
And such a player might have a hard time playing lacrosse too if he's too
true,
lanky. It doesn't
correct.
look like a good lanky sport. I had a friend at the academy who they were looking for lacrosse players and a big guy, so they made him a defenseman. and it was, it was simpler to learn, so to speak,
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of like
Just go
handball
whack somebody
defense, I
with this
guess.
bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but the other factor that I wanted to get into a little bit, if we've covered like the basic
Yeah. Yeah.
differences, was the other issue that I wanted to get into was the scholarships and the types of scholarships that athletes have. And Wikipedia, there's other websites that have it. Um, and uh, a lot of people they like to, again, everybody's biased to the sport that they played. Um, but I don't think they're all equal in terms of transition. When you're trying to sell handball, you're like saying, well, we take something from every sport. Yeah, I suppose if you want to stretch it a little bit, you
Hmm.
can make that case. But I'm telling you, I'm going to be looking for a lacrosse or basketball player before I'm going to be looking for an equestrian or a
Yep.
soccer player for that matter, or a volleyball player. Nothing against those sports. Well, maybe a little bit against equestrian, but um, I, there's a reason why certain sports are better for transition than others, um, and why we should look harder at some sports than other sports instead of saying we'll take anybody.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, Because if you're taking anybody, you might not be getting the
The
best
best.
athletes available.
Yep.
Or maybe that's all that's available, and you are by default going to take anybody. Um, because the other thing is when somebody comes from volleyball or soccer, and you talk to them a little bit, you find out, well, yeah, they also played high school basketball. They weren't very
Yep.
good, but they played it. Maybe they didn't have a good shot. Maybe they were a little bit more rough and tumble of an athlete, or for whatever reason. But some sports translate better than others. And then the quality of the athlete, as a rule, and this is a little bit of an explanation in terms of the types of scholarships and the amounts of scholarships that are offered for each sports. Now, here's what are so there are four women's sports where everybody that is recruited has a full ride scholarship. Do you know what those four sports are?
Um, Everybody on the team, I feel like,
Everybody that's recruited, you could still have
okay.
walk-ons, but there is nobody with a partial scholarship. You either are full ride or nothing.
Man, I want to say basketball, which is probably
That's
wrong.
correct.
Uh, Man, everything else after that's so small. Like I feel like soccer, um, golf. No, there's probably partial scholarship for golf.
Golf is partial scholarships. The four
Field
sports
field
are
hockey.
nope. The four
Okay,
sports are basketball. And in this chart, if you have a decimal point, you are
there's
not a
partial.
you no, you
Oh,
are partial. If you
yeah.
are a whole number, you are a what is called a head count sport.
Okay,
If you are a partial scholarship, oh wow, we're already down at 10. Well, we may have to continue this
okay,
discussion
yeah.
again. But if you are a partial scholarship, this chart you have a decimal point. So for
Okay,
instance, basketball, there are
basketball.
13 men's scholarship athletes and 15 women's scholarship athletes. I'm not sure why that's different.
That doesn't even make any sense, but yes,
Well,
go, keep
hold on,
going.
hold on.
Okay,
In football, there
yep,
are 85 head count scholarships, and there are zero women's
fair.
head count. Okay, so that's why they
So,
added an couple extra more.
yeah,
There are only two men's sports that are full ride for everybody:
there's basketball and football.
basketball and football. In women's, it is basketball, volleyball, gymnastics, and I thought that this was silly. Um, tennis.
Tennis. That's random.
It's random and it is absolutely ridiculous. Do you know why say it's absolutely ridiculous?
I mean, I just feel like it's no different than golf in that concept. Like, I feel like if that, why draw the line on tennis? So,
Why pick that one to be a special sport? And you know what is the result of that? Is a ridiculous number of international
yeah,
athletes on full ride scholarships, to include Hispanic women at HBCUs from like Latin America
yeah,
playing getting a full ride to I don't know Howard
Howard,
University
yeah,
or whatever.
Alcorn
Um,
State.
yeah. So let's take lacrosse. So I assume you have some knowledge of this.
Yep,
So here lacrosse. So basketball, you have your walk-ons like the club trillion guy,
yep,
but you do not have anybody who's like half scholarship or a fourth scholarship. There's some schools that I think even do 1/8 scholarships. It's up to the coach. The coach can decide. With basketball and football, you either got a full ride or you don't.
yep,
But for lacrosse, the coach is given 12.6 scholarships, and he can divvy those up however he wants among all the players on his team.
yep,
Um, so I would like to think that Pat Spencer probably a full ride,
yep.
but not everybody at Loyal had a full ride, and some of those
Correct.
guys would be playing some important minutes. How many
And
people on a lacrosse college team?
oh man, on a college team, you're probably talking, I don't know what the cutoff is, but it's probably like 28 or something like that, maybe 30, 32.
Really?
So, yeah.
That's a lot
I
of
mean,
dudes.
there's 10 guys on the field, at once, and then you're going to have some specialist guys for face off. So you'll have two or three of those guys. Then you'll have, two or three deep of lines like hockey. So you'll have, another nine or so, maybe middies, and then you'll have another, three or four defensemen and then another goalie. So yeah,
So
it's a good,
different.
it's a beef. So 12, so dividing that, 12.6 by, 30 some guys, it gets interesting. And I know when I was, working with Tiffin to get the Tiffin handball job, there was scholarship money, available to us. And, they basically told me it was the same kind of thing. Like, if you have your 10 guys, we're going to give you X number of dollars that you can distribute how you see fit to each player, or if not. So it's like interesting.
That's a very interesting dynamic. And while I've read some stuff online, different coaches handle it different ways. But it's like, why is this dude getting a full ride? He's not. I'm doing just as much as he is, you know.
Yep.
But what are you going to do if you're that player? You're going to complain to the coach?
Right.
I,
And
I
then get
guess if
cut.
you were really good, you could go into the transfer portal or something.
hmm That's where this
Um,
NIL things made things very different because you could be, a third string guy who's on a partial scholarship somewhere and, have a pretty good NIL deal or no NIL deal versus then going to be a first string guy somewhere else that might not have scholarships, but then you get an NIL deal. So it's like,
are we talking like
it's
major NIL deals for college lacrosse?
no. I was transferring just to football and basketball, but it still applies a decent amount. I met with the NIL director for Ohio State to kind of ask him, obviously his thoughts on how I could go about something for handball because realistically, the fact that you have gymnastics and rifle people that have NIL deals, there's no reason handball player couldn't in the same kind of concept.
Well,
So I was
that's
like,
a talk for another time.
yeah.
Why the frick is rifle an NCAA sport? You got to be kidding me.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, and why are they getting full rides? I'm sorry if there are any rifle people
I bet we can
that
follow
are
the money
listening to
to get an
this.
answer. We can follow the
Yeah.
money. So,
No, no.
no?
You want to follow the money, you stop at basketball and football.
Yeah, true,
Everything
true.
else is just a load of crap from historical, strange historical
Yep.
reasons. None of them make money. The only
Yep.
sports that make money are football and basketball, and actually, women's gymnastics at some schools is making money, and
Does pretty well. Yep.
some women's basketball programs are making money. But fencing, come on, it's not. They're not making money with fencing. It's just historical purposes. They got in the club, they stay in the club. And handball, what really pisses me off when they talk about, oh, our Olympic sports are going to happen. Not
Yeah.
all your
Yeah.
Olympic
Yeah. That
sports,
gets me
not
every
all
time.
your Olympic sports, because handball isn't in that category. Well, anyway, um,
We'll get onto that next week.
yeah. But my point for this, we got 3 minutes. My point for this was to kind of raise the issue about the the relative value of a scholarship and the type of sport that person is coming from. Somebody that loves lacrosse is going to play lacrosse and he's going to want to play lacrosse in college. But there is a natural tendency for athletes to gravitate to basketball and football because they're all full ride. They're also very popular sports. Um, there's more opportunity there. There are more scholarships in those sports.
Yep.
You get a scholarship there, it's a full ride. I don't know if that's in the mind of every, 14-year-old kid trying to decide what sport he wants to play, but it's probably in the back of their mind.
Yep.
You know,
And
it,
especially when you look at 85 for football, I mean, you're talking long snappers, holders, special teams guy that's just a gunner. I mean, you don't have to be the starting quarterback. You can be some third string special teams guy.
and I guess that's where I'm saying, like, somebody coming from a football program or a basketball program, chances are, on average, they're going to be better athletes because of this hierarchy, if you will.
Yep.
I mean, do you
Case in
agree?
point, case in point was I did not attend obviously the Trailblazer Conference Championships this past weekend, but Pitt had a Pitt football player that played with them. And he, from what I saw, was you immediately noticeable. Wasn't game changing, still, but a talented player. He was just a long snapper. I mean, so
Yeah. Yeah, this is where I go on the proxy for better or worse. It's basketball. It's roughly the same number of players. They have that hierarchy advantage that I'm talking about. That was the case that I was making. Not to say that obviously that lacrosse has got some great
yeah,
athletes, but pound for pound, the lacrosse athletes are not going to be as good as the basketball or football. That's the point I was making
yeah,
before. Maybe not as articulate.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. They're definitely
well,
more valued, that's for sure. So
yeah. There obviously there's dead weight sitting on the bench somewhere at
yeah, yep,
Binghamton or UMass Lowell.
yep,
Anyway, JD, we'll continue this discussion more. There's more thoughts I
yeah.
have on this, but we're running out of time. For JD Orr, I'm John Ryan, and thanks for listening.
Cool. That's good.